Creators waited for this new tool for ages, and so when YouTube finally rolled out the update, expectations were high. But now it's been a few months. The data and the feedback are in, and let's just say creators are underwhelmed. Instead of celebrating, a lot of us are asking the question, was the YouTube test and compare feature for thumbnails, otherwise known as A/B thumbnail testing, actually worth it? From Wono's viral Twitter thread to different subreddits where this has been hotly debated, and even in my own friend circles, creators are beginning to ask the question, does A/B thumbnail testing actually hurt more than it helps? It's almost like YouTube gave us exactly what we wanted, but either they missed the mark or our expectations were just too high. Let's start with the biggest surprise and frustration that a lot of creators found when they began using the A/B thumbnail testing tool, but more specifically, when they found out how the tool actually measures success. When creators, myself included, first heard that this feature was finally coming to YouTube, a lot of us assumed that it was going to be based fully around click-through rates. And if you don't know, basically what this thumbnail tool does is tests up to 3 different thumbnails at the same exact time on all kinds of viewers. So I think it wasn't wrong for us to assume that YouTube is going to look at those 3 thumbnails potentially, see which one gets more clicks, and then settle on the one that gets clicked on the most. But YouTube did something that a lot of us feel was a little bit strange. Instead of measuring based off clicks, it measures based on watch time. Basically, which thumbnail meant that when someone clicked on it, they sat down and watched the video longer. Now, Wono's viral Twitter thread I mentioned earlier goes into painstaking detail about this. It explains how every video potentially has various audiences, from niche viewers who heavily consume specific content and creators to new viewers who might be seeing your content for the first time. Each group reacts differently, so a thumbnail that works very well for one specific group of viewers might just not hit the same with a different group of viewers. So let's say you have a video and you're testing 2 thumbnails, and one of them appeals to viewers who happen to be new 10 times more than it appeals to your regular viewers, meaning the new viewers are going to click on it with a very high likelihood. However, because they're new, naturally, they're just not as likely to stick around. They don't know you very well yet. And here, Wono was arguing that this is going to limit the tool's effectiveness, especially for creators who are just trying to expand their reach, which, if true, is holding creators back by ignoring the potential of a high-click thumbnail to a new viewer. That's a tough pill to swallow at any size channel, but I imagine especially so if you are a smaller channel. Let's ask the question, why did YouTube choose watch time over click-through rate in the first place? Well, I stumbled upon this Reddit post, and a commenter made a very interesting point. No one likes clickbait, and YouTube doesn't want their platform to be known for clickbaity thumbnails. Implementing an A/B testing tool driven by click-through rate is going to encourage the creation of low-effort clickbait. Instead, by using watch time, it forces all of us to make better thumbnails. This perspective suggests that YouTube is actually forcing creators to make thumbnails that meet the expectation and the reality of what's behind the thumbnail, the actual video. If your thumbnail tricks people into clicking on your video and it doesn't deliver on the promise, YouTube doesn't want to promote that. So by focusing on watch time for these thumbnails, YouTube is rewarding creators who can keep people engaged once they promise something and a video delivers on it. Which makes sense, because if people are clicking on your thumbnail and then immediately leaving the video, YouTube doesn't want to be pushing that. Despite that logic, this tool from YouTube has left me wanting so much more, and I can tell other creators out there agree. Without understanding the click-through rate side of the thumbnail conundrum, it's really hard to know which thumbnails are driving that initial interest for a video. What's also missing here are the amount of impressions. It's great to see that a thumbnail kind of wins and loses in a test, but what we don't know and what we have to assume is that these thumbnails are being shared out equally, but that's probably not the case. How many impressions did each thumbnail get? I feel like that alone could go a long way, but we've been testing this tool now for months, and the results we've been getting do not feel definitive at all. 9 times out of 10, the differences in performance between thumbnails are so small, it's hard to tell if it even matters. This happens whether we're testing bold, completely different concepts, or we're just making subtle tweaks to a thumbnail. YouTube's algorithm, especially these days, is focused on viewer satisfaction, so I understand how watch time promotes viewer satisfaction. But I really do think there are so many ways that YouTube can measure viewer satisfaction that clickbait might not necessarily be a problem here if they decided to switch it up and let click-through rate be the winning metric for thumbnail testing. Because I don't know about you, but before thumbnail testing, if your video clickbaited someone with the one and only thumbnail it had, YouTube still wasn't pushing it out very far. If people were leaving early, that video would suffer. It didn't matter how great the thumbnail was. But I digress. How can you actually make use of this tool in its current state? Because I do think there is still some value here. I do think you could approach this strategically, so I just want to leave you with a few tips so that you can use A/B thumbnail testing without harming the success of your videos potentially. My first piece of advice is to test this on videos that are a bit older, before you go testing it on brand new uploads. If you're successful, that older video is going to get a boost, and at the same time, you didn't impact the very critical first phases of a new upload. It's going to let you see if this new thumbnail style you want to try actually does lead to more engagement for your video, thus helping out in the long run, and you didn't put any new videos at risk. My second piece of advice is that you use very small and intentional changes here. When running a test, it's probably best not to do two dramatically different thumbnails. Instead, you could do things like change the background, or try the same kind of thumbnail, one with text, one without, or maybe the text says something different in each version. Subtle tweaks will allow you to kind of zero in on what is and isn't working for your audience. Number 3 is to focus on videos that have probably recently stalled out, right? Maybe at first they were doing really well, but lately they kind of just flatlined and they're not really hitting anything other than a ceiling. A new thumbnail or two might actually help revive them. And if you revive them a little bit, that algorithm is going to work to spread it to even more people because it'll kind of get an even better understanding of who this video is actually for. Number 4, and this goes for even if you're not testing thumbnails at all, pay attention to your watch time metrics. I know we have a ton of metrics we need to focus on, so it might be tempting to ignore things like watch time, but honestly, watch time is YouTube's #1 metric for understanding the success of a video and how much it's satisfying the viewer. But if you pair that with your thumbnail testing, you're going to start to get a sense of the imagery that not only brings people into your content, but keeps them watching. Again, which imagery is best delivering on the promises that your videos make day in and day out. Honestly, having better watch time just leads to a more engaged audience in general, and at the end of the day, that's really what you want. The subscriber number going up is great, but if those subscribers aren't really engaged with the content, you didn't really earn anything. So with a little bit of strategy, A/B testing could be a great way to refine your thumbnails, but if subscribers were the thing you were hoping for all along, then this video is the one I'm going to recommend to you next. John has a few little, we'll call them hacks, for growing that subscriber number. Enjoy.